welcome back to the Caffeinated Classroom. If this is your first time here, my name is Marie. I'm a high school English teacher in San Diego, California, and it is my fourth day of school. It's the beginning of my second week of school. I gave a lesson today that I'm really excited to share with you. It uses the picture book, Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs, to introduce students to big topics and critical thinking skills and get us talking and get them really thinking, and I am excited. And you can get your hands on this lesson by watching. I'll tell you exactly how to get it in just a minute. Let's get started. So friends, this lesson that I did today, like I said in the intro, using the children's book Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, comes from the amazing brain of my good friend Amanda, who is the other half of the Brave New Teaching duo. If you don't already listen to our podcast, or if you haven't attended maybe one of our free PD events, we did a Shakespeare Teacher Festival in the spring of 2021. And spoiler alert, we have another Teacher PD Festival. This time it's all about dystopia in the fall of 2021. There's more information in the blog post that is linked down below this video. Please spread the word. It is going to be full of a lot of our tried and true strategies and ideas for teaching dystopia in classrooms, such as the lesson I'm talking to you about today. You can get this lesson for free in the same blog post. Just check out the link down below. This lesson introduces students to the ideas of utopia and dystopia in a very organic fashion. It gets us talking, it gets us thinking, and it gets them, students, putting themselves into the shoes of the characters in very interesting ways and ways that are surprising for our students. We actually did a podcast episode that talks through this entire lesson, so I'm not going to necessarily talk all the way through it because you can check out that episode. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I took this lesson that introduces dystopia and I adapted it for an American literature course that is not teaching dystopia, but it takes the same ideas, and we're talking about the foundations of government. We're talking about the end goal here is going to be to start doing a rhetorical analysis of the Declaration of Independence. And you might be thinking to yourself, what? Why are you linking dystopia and utopia and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs with the Declaration of Independence, Marie? I will explain it to you right now. So when students walked into my class today, they had a bell ringer up on the board that asked them a couple of questions. And the first question was about if it could rain one food every day for the rest of your life, what would you choose? And the second question is why? And it needs to be a little bit more thoughtful than just because it's delicious, right? Like, because it's yummy is not good enough for this course. They started with that, and students actually wrote way more than I anticipated. I thought I was gonna have to draw it out of them, but the lion's share of kiddos wrote more than I thought they were going to. They just got really into it. They thought it was weird and exciting and they liked it. And then I asked for some volunteers to share, and I had a few kind of goofy goober answers, but I had a few that were extremely thoughtful and thinking about world hunger, and it was good. We had a good mix. Then I said, okay, put everything down, phone screen side down. It's time for story time. Boom, read the entire book. There is also, if you download this lesson, there's a sheet that we have that goes along with it that you can download for free that has 5 different questions that students go through. We didn't do all 5 of the questions today. We just did the ones that were gonna really steer our conversation. And then it asks students to basically come up with their own ideal world, having to do with meatballs and hamburgers falling from the sky or not, no parameters on it whatsoever. So as I read the story, I kept alluding to some of the answers that students shared about what they would have rain from the sky, right? I made it very interactive. And I also found myself having to walk around the room a lot more than I thought I was going to. Normally, if it wasn't COVID, we would all be sitting down on the ground together, or, I'd invite everybody to come forward for story time, but this was more of I walk around the room, everybody stays in their place kind of a situation. But it's a pretty long picture book. Picture books are deceptively long. And they stayed with me. They stayed with me for just about all of it. There were only a couple times where I had to strategically walk around near somebody. And I think it's because teenagers aren't used to being read to like that. And it was novel and it was different and it was new. So read through the book, talked through, gave them some time to answer the questions I wanted them to answer. We talked through things like, what was it like, what are some of the dangers of like depending on something like the weather for something that's so important like nutrition, and that started to get us into a conversation about power dynamics and government. What was it that sounds so great? Go ahead.
They basically got free food handed to them every day.
Free food. Who doesn't like free food? Right? What else?
Employers
Didn't have to employ anybody to work at stores? Absolutely. Give me more. Go ahead.
Nobody had to worry about going hungry.
Nobody had to worry about going hungry. World hunger solved. Boom. We're done. Now, there's a bit of a power dynamic here, right? Between the people and the whims of the weather. I mean, we've had some weird weather even in the past few days, right? Like it rained on Saturday. And not just like a little bit, it like actually kept raining and was still 75 degrees. And I was like, what is happening? So what is the potential, am I going off script? Oh no, I'm good. What is the potential danger from what we can see of counting on something that is fickle like weather for nourishment or for like that kind of that power trade? Go ahead. We're gonna skip number 3 for the moment. We might come back to it in a second, but let's go doomsday here. It's the worst thing that could have happened. I want you to talk in your groups about what you see as the doomsday scenario. Like what if they couldn't make it out? What could or would have happened? And giving away power to something that we can't control, like what is government? Well, it's trusting an entity to like run things, right? And like starting a government anyways is putting a lot of trust in a system that's being created. So I steered our conversation towards systems, towards trust, towards power, towards control, lack of, or like who has control and that sort of a thing. And at the very end of the activity, students come up with their own perfect world, their own perfect government. When I do this again in the spring, I think I'll have them, I'll point it even further towards talking truly about like systems and governments, because then that leads us directly into, we're going to be doing a rhetorical analysis of the Declaration of Independence. Now you can see where it all kind of like fits in together. So we're going to be looking at what was the idea, like what's the message here? What are we trying to create? What are our authors trying to create in this document? Let's look at their argument. We're going to do rhetorical analysis there. And then not making light of something like the Declaration of Independence, but also likening it to, this sounded like a great idea until there were some pitfalls. What are some pitfalls to what we see in the arguments in the Declaration of Independence? Who is represented? Who benefits? Who is missing? At whose detriment is this argument? And the detriment could be the British, right? There are a lot of different ways that we're going to go with it. But I'm really excited because I didn't have to try too hard to make that connection happen. Students were able to, all I had to do was plant little seeds and they were following the thread pretty well. So like I said, I've only done this one. I started with actually using the book. There is nothing like, and if you listen to the podcast episode where we really walk through the lesson, there is nothing like a picture book, man, to grab kiddos' attention. And we make the case for that and we explain it all. If you haven't tried it before, I highly suggest using picture books. It's pretty great for students. It's just different and it's novel and they like it. And then really asking them to start talking about something so silly as a pancake falling on a school, which happens in like the middle of the book, but then talking about some of the actual real ramifications to schools closing. Our students have very direct connections to that, and they get that on a very real level because we are now back at school for the first time all together, at least in my area. We haven't had school like this since March of 2020. And I mean, we are all masked all day long when we're indoors, and it's definitely weird. And we definitely have kiddos who are out with cases of COVID and that sort of thing, but we understand what happens and what the trickle down effect is when school closes. So like that was a moment that we got to really have a real conversation about something so silly as a giant pancake falling on a building. So I highly recommend that you click down below. It's free, everybody. I like to help out with free things as much as I possibly can. You can get this lesson by signing up for the Dystopian Teacher Festival. Even if you don't teach dystopia like me, there are things that we can take from these themes. Some of the novels, some of the short stories we'll be talking about, a lot of the supplemental texts can be applied to other classes. And it's just really fun to like virtually get together for a week for the festival and be able to take in the content, share on social media, and just share ideas and best practices. And it's the best way to teach. So this was a quick one. I wanted to get this in and through to you as quickly as I could. I hope that you give this a try in your class or some variation thereof. And I hope that you enjoy. Thank you so much for joining. Like I said, check out the description box down below so that you can join us for the Dystopian Festival, the Brave New Teaching Fall Festival, and get this very lesson right in your inbox. Until we meet again, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.